And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Attention, roll call.
Good morning, everybody. 8:05 Eastern Time. It's bright and early. 5:05 Pacific Time on the West Coast. I got to laugh. Good morning, Hassan. What's up, brother? Hassan, but it's boring. Your content fell off, guys. What the heck? LOL. Outstanding. Good morning. Listen, I'm actually really excited about this episode because I thought to myself, unless correct me if I'm wrong, this is completely opinionated based. I don't think we have any evidence behind this, whether it's a good thing or bad thing. I think it's completely opinionated. So I think let's just jump right into it. And let's start with that. NYPD Detectives Endowment Association partners with Uber. What are your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, man. I mean, so like initially, I don't know. Like I think a lot of ways around it. I know a lot of guys got jammed up over drinking and driving. Some people lost their careers. Some people, horrible. Destroyed their lives. Destroyed other people's lives as well. So I understand it's definitely an issue, and I think it's something that I think it's something that always ultimately comes down to personal responsibility and personal choice. And again, like I really can't stand these unions because, and Scott, if you're listening to this, it's I look at a guy like Marlin Bethel, a 16-year detective who received zero due process, was never charged with anything in the NYPD. Administratively, he wasn't charged with anything criminally. And he's terminated. And that is something that's like the core mission of the union, right? Is to protect your pay, to protect your benefits, and to your working conditions. And this kid didn't even receive due process. And he's remains terminated, and you're not doing anything to get this guy back. As a matter of fact, you're ignoring him. And I know that you listen to this, your trustees listen to this. And it's honestly, it's the ultimate form of cowardice. And now you're sitting here and you rush this thing to the newspaper, like sort of like what you did with the poll, right, for the president of the United States, because we'll get into the article and we'll go through it. But this ultimately comes down to personal responsibility. And I'm not sure this is something that the union should even get involved in, or that me being a union member, like I'm not a member of the Detectives Endowment Association, but I'm a member of the LBA. I'm a lifetime member of the LBA, and I honestly don't think that my union dues should go towards that. Like, I don't know. It could be a good thing. I don't know. Like, I really, there's so much here to talk about that. I'm a little like, I don't know what to think about it, honestly.
I tossed it up in my head a bunch of times. I was thinking about this. That's why I was kind of excited. I was like, wow, here's an episode that is really totally opinionated based. There's no evidence behind it. I mean, I think ultimately, I'll actually give some kudos to the unions finally, say that here's a step in the right direction, that they actually want to find something to actually help their members rather than just saying they're going to help their members. But I think you said the key word, John, and that this comes down to personal liability. Personal liability and also personal responsibility. I think it's both. But at the same token, I don't know how this would work because, I mean, honestly, if you're out there and you're drinking to the point that you can't drive and you can't take it upon yourself. I mean, we're talking about New York City police officers, detectives who make a handsome salary. Some detectives out there right now are making over $200,000 in overtime, right? With this NYPD we're in right now. If you're not willing, forget about this union-based idea. If you're out there drinking, whatever the case is, an event, or if you're just out with your wife or girlfriend, you're out with a couple of guys, and you're not willing to spend, I don't know, maybe $50 to save your life and save someone else's, to have any heartache, how is this going to make any difference? Because it's free? I mean, if it's really about the money, that's, obviously people are short-sighted. They're not really thinking. I mean, I have no problem if I'm out there and I'm not good enough to get behind the wheel. I don't mind spending $100 or $200. I think it was Patrick Donahue who said a couple episodes ago, and that he did the math that you could actually take an Uber to to LA that it would be cheaper than what's going to cost in your upcoming court dates and what's it going to take, with insurance companies if you are involved in a DWI. So I get it. I think it's a good idea that they actually want to help to prevent DWIs and to prevent getting jammed up with the police department. But I mean, we're grown men and women. Do we really need someone to pay for your Uber? That's where I think when it comes out to personal responsibility, this is where we fall short.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm glad you brought up Patrick Donahue, because I think that was actually, this whole thing was Patrick Donahue's idea, because he kind of labeled it out in the comments and we read it out. And I think this stemmed a lot from that. So, I think that there is, as much as the job can't stand this podcast and particularly the unions and the leadership, I think a lot of good comes out of it, because it really is like a brainstorming, really is a brainstorming session, So let's just put it into perspective, though, right? So let's pretend every member of the DEA, I don't know how many members there are. Let's say there's 5,000. Someone gave me the number yesterday and I can't remember it. It's something around that. Let's say there's 5,000 detectives and they take one Uber ride a year. And we'll say that Uber ride is $30. And by the way, that is not, I say that's the lowest number possible. I don't even think that that's what that Uber ride is going to be, because I think the people that are going to be apt to use this program are not going to live in New York City. So I think their Uber ride's going to be more like $150 to $200. But that's besides the point. Let's just say it's $30 times 5,000 people once a year. It's $150,000. To get an attorney to get a NYPD detective back to work who's terminated non-discipline probably cost the union about $7,000. And they didn't do that yet. They're going to spend $150,000. Wait. Let me backtrack. So, what do you think the cost of a Uber ride, the average Uber ride, is actually going to come out to? Let's say one person in every member of the union does it once a year. What do you think the average cost of that Uber ride is going to be?
Oh, I would think it'd be far more than $30. I mean, sometimes I like to take Uber sometimes just because my wife, right now I got the truck pulling the RV, so my wife has the truck, and I'm out there doing things. I'll take an Uber, and just to go maybe like 2-3 miles is $20 with tips. So I think this is gonna be far more than $30. I think the average would be close to about $75. Because I mean, what we didn't talk about also with this is, what are the limitations and what are the boundaries, right? You always have to have boundaries in a program. So what are the limits and what are the boundaries? Like, how far could you go? I mean, what's the mileage? I'm sure, that's why we don't know all the rules that would come up on this thing. How far could you go? Could you be picked up outside the city? Could you be picked up inside the city and go outside the city? So it really comes down to mileage. I would say the average, without knowing this knowledge here, I would say easy $75.
I mean, I agree with you. Like, when I'm in New York now, I usually don't drive anywhere. I just take an Uber, and I take an Uber to Manhattan. I take an Uber to Brooklyn. I stay based out of Staten Island, and I take an Uber, and I don't even really drink. I just do it out of convenience. I don't feel like dealing with the parking. I'm just like, you know what? I'm retired now. I don't need to get all crazy. Like, I'm still working, going in. I'm gonna use the New York life like I'm a tourist, or I'm just enjoying the atmosphere. So I use an Uber, and I'll tell you, I don't remember taking an Uber anywhere under $80, and that's in New York City. And when we think about it, it's like, and I'm not knocking the Long Island guys, but when you think about it, think about a guy that's in Manhattan now that goes out drinking, and he lives in Smithtown, Long Island. What does that Uber cost him? That Uber is not $80. That Uber is like $300. And so my thing is, I kind of just don't understand it at all. Like, I don't understand the thought process behind it. Like, Uber has an app. It's rumored that the DEA is building this app in conjunction with Uber. Supposedly, I don't know if it's true or not, but supposedly they're using the same app developer that developed the two pollings that never came out. The one that would, did you want to support Donald Trump or Joe Biden? Then they built another one that was, do you want to support Joe Biden or Kamala Harris? I mean, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. And, you know, both of those polls never got out, even though they went to the media and talked about that. So they're using that same developer to create this app. Uber already has an app. Like, how much does that cost? How much is the app creation? How are these funds being dictated? Is there somebody behind the scenes saying, all right, I'll fund this program for you? Is the police foundation saying, I'll fund this program? Or, you know, some type of entity like that. I think when we look at municipal labor unions, especially the police unions, I think they're anything but transparent. And I think, as much as this sounds like a good thing, and you know, we rush out to go to the media, oh, we're gonna bring our detectives into the political arena, and then we never know that it comes out that 94% of detectives actually wanted to endorse Donald Trump, and that never gets released to the public because these unions all kiss Kathy Hochul's ass and are afraid of her. I think when I look at this again, I look at this and I'm saying, if I'm a member of the DEA right now, I'm sending emails. How much is this going to cost? How much are we paying for this? Who even brought this up, and how does this work, and how is it going to work? What are those boundaries? Ultimately, is this getting paid for by someone else? And if it is, then I really don't have an issue with it. But if it's coming out of my dues, I kind of do. And even if that, like, where are you supporting detectives that have been placed in trouble? Where are you on this corruption scandal? Where are you on the issue of Marlin Bethel?
So here's the beauty about this podcast, right? And that's why I say this particular episode, I think it's going to be fun. It's completely opinionated based. We don't have any evidence at this point to back it up. So it's just opinions. If you think it's a good idea, it's a bad idea. And then we actually delve into the different services and the layers of cost and the layers of how this actual system will work. Before I get into that, shout out to 516 Diecast, $1.99 coffee and donuts. Here we go. Good morning, Lieutenants. P.R. Fruity, President Duty. Good morning, my brother. How you doing? Outstanding. Yeah, you know what? Let's talk about cost, right? So what I'm curious about cost is, and this is what kind of perturbs me, right? We talk about personal responsibility, personal liability, personal accountability. You're an adult, and you're a New York City police officer, you're a detective, whatever your rank is. You know how the standard that you're held to, right? No matter what. Once you become a police officer in the NYPD forever, and I say forever, goes for you, John, goes for me also in retirement, Patrick Donahue, any one of our friends here. If you're involved in an incident, it's like join the mob. You can never get rid of this label. If you're involved in an incident 30 years after retirement, God forbid you get into a DWI, it's going to say retired Lieutenant John McCarry, excuse me, retired Lieutenant Eric Dim. So you never lose that label. So I don't understand this idea that paid for by the detectives is going to change the game for anything. That's where I don't understand. I don't understand if you're a grown man, you're a grown woman, you work for the NYPD, you have so much to lose that you would be hesitant to call an Uber because you don't want to spend $100. I find that idiotic. That's the part I don't understand. Even if it's $200 to get home safe, to not wrap up your car, to not get yourself involved into a pickle. God forbid someone gets involved, you know, another party, and God forbid someone gets hurt or injured, and you're a New York City police officer. I don't understand this ideology of not wanting to pay $200, that you need the union to actually support you to pay for that Uber ride. This is where I don't understand it. This is where I think we completely missed the mark. Are cops that cheap that we need the detectives union to actually pay for their Uber? What are your thoughts on that?
I think a lot of times when you look at like dumb decisions that are made, not just with cops, with everybody, it just comes down to laziness, and it comes down to availability. You're out, say you do live in Long Island or you live in Staten Island, you drove to work, took your car to work. Like, I don't want to take an Uber home. I don't want to leave my car here. It's going to be a pain. How am I getting to work tomorrow? it really always comes down to laziness. It's never really about the affordability, in my opinion. It comes down to bad timing, bad decisions, and laziness. And I think it really is about personal responsibility. If you know you're going to go out drinking, have that plan that you need to get home and you need to get back to work in the morning. You need to plan ahead. You need to not just play checkers like, oh, yeah, I'll get home with the Uber. But all right, how am I getting back to work tomorrow morning? How am I getting my car? Should I just not even bring my car and I don't have to worry about that, right? Like I leave my car home. I PT it in, however that is, wherever you live, deal with it. I think planning ahead is a big thing. And for me, I'm pretty strict with the drinking. Like I said, I take the feather out of the hat. I know a lot of people would love nothing more than to see me in handcuffs and laugh at me. And it's not just even that. It's just the last thing I would ever want to do is harm an innocent person because of a decision that I made. And I really don't like being intoxicated anymore. When I was younger, it was something I enjoyed. I think it alleviated a lot of stress from me, and it kind of took me out of my surroundings and all the issues I was dealing with. But now I don't feel like I need to be there. I feel like I don't need the alcohol, but I understand when people want to go out, and I understand how things happen on the spur of the moment, and I think a lot of it always comes down to just bad decisions more than you're cheap. You can go to a bar right now with a bunch of cops. The majority of cops aren't that cheap. Like, you get the 1 to 2 guys that are real cheap. And those are the guys I think that will take advantage of this. Like, they didn't even drink, but they're like, yeah, babe, we're going to go to the Billy Joel concert. Then I'm going to call the Uber. I'm going to say I'm intoxicated, and they're going to drive us back to Smithtown. Like, I think, and that's my thing. Like, what are those limits on that? As like, that's what I would want to know. Cause those guys, they're like real frugal. They're real one-way bastards. They wouldn't reach in their hand. They're like, oh, I'm going to get the next round. I'm going to get the next round. I'm going to get the next round. But I don't think the majority of cops are cheap. I just think you end up in bad situations on spur of the moment things, right? Like your friend's like, I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to take you to the bar. Great. Next thing you know, you're out, you're with your friends. You just broke up with your girlfriend. You're a young guy, and some girls like, drive my car home, take me home. And you're like, oh, okay. And now you're driving drunk, even though you planned ahead. It's like a bad, not that happened to me, but I'm just saying, but like, that's like, it's poor planning. And then it's on top of that spur of the moment decisions that you really got to avoid, dude, because again, you're 100% right, Eric. You're a celebrity, whether you know it or not. You might not have a lot of money, but you'll believe me, when you mess up, you're going to be, everybody's going to know your name. The whole nation's going to know your name.
I agree. Used to say the 7 P's of the Marie quote was, proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. And that's exactly that. You're right. If you're going out and you know that you may drink to the point that you shouldn't get behind the wheel, you need to take an Uber to your location, so they end up taking an Uber home. You're right. So if you don't plan for it, you take your car. And that happens a lot. You take your car and you're like, you didn't intend on having a couple of drinks, but obviously things change. You start to have some drinks and now your car's there. And a lot of times it is logistics. You don't want to leave your car there. You're going to get home safe, but you're thinking, how do I get my car back? Is it parked at a safe location? Am I going to get summonses? I have to get work the next day. So yes, that's why I say prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance. If you planned ahead, you would take the Uber there or have someone take you there and then get home. Take the Uber, not have to worry about your car and plan out what time you get back for work the next day. But I don't think that we're necessarily talking about someone who's drinking to the point that they're inebriated. I mean, what if you're drinking to the point, well, maybe I should just get behind the wheel, right? God forbid I'm involved in something. The police department's going to determine that I'm unfit for duty, which I think is the most subjective term. It's so outdated for the police department. I hate it. I hate this idea that you have to be fit for duty. What is that? I think that's extremely subjective. What is fit for duty? I mean, some of these guys don't go to work every day. They don't have a drink. They're completely out of shape. They look terrible. They're sloppy. They could care less. They're not fit for duty. What's the difference? Honestly, I could probably, and I'm not saying I'm doing it. I could probably go out and have 6 beers and run faster than half these cops right now who are totally out of shape, who could care less about work. So I think that's extremely subjective. By the way, Louisa Mifsud. Shout out to you, Coffee and Donuts, 1999. Love the mission and the content. Keep up the good work. George and Louisa Mifsud. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Shout out to George, good friend of the podcast. Just great work out there. Speaking of a guy that stays in shape, he stays in great shape, takes care of himself. You know, honestly, John, we talk about being subjective, right? I mean, I hate this idea of unfit for duty. What if you're home, you're on your couch, you're home, and you're sitting back in a recliner and you're watching football games and you're having a couple, you're home and you're going to go in your own bed. Someone's going to tell you that you're not fit for duty, you're home. It's the most ridiculous thing. This is completely outdated. But I hate that term. But honestly, when we talk about logistics with the Uber and stuff like that, I think money is not a factor on cost when it comes for a cop. But to get that, people that don't want to call an Uber on their own, are they really going to call an app by the detectives union? I mean, is IAB going to get involved? I mean, these are a lot of things I start thinking about. Are you just going to take that ride? I mean, how is it anonymous? Do they keep record? It was Detective Dim that took that ride. I don't know. There's a lot of questions here. What do you think?
I just want to say shout out to George and keep promotions. If you guys are looking to get promotion, which you all should, if you're on the job still, you should be, or you're going to get on the job, your goal should be to pass every single test, and keep promotions will help you do that. So check out The Key with George Misfoot. They're up on Instagram as well. Instagram, I believe Twitter too. If you're not, you guys should be on Twitter too. It's a very powerful platform.
Absolutely.
We could help you get some followers there. So, but yeah, you should be going up the ranks, and this is part of going up the ranks. I think is really having these real discussions, right? Being fit for duty. What's fit for duty? I mean, that's a great point. I hate to laugh at it, but it's true. I could be intoxicated and be more fit for duty than a lot of people that I see that are technically fit for duty. What is it? It's subjective. Should cops never ever drink? It's not even possible, right? It's not even possible. I mean, there are cops that drink all the time. There are cops that drink occasionally. But alcohol is a part of life. I mean, unfortunately, that's just what it is. And it shows like the job's inability to like humanize cops at all. And I'm not saying that we should get involved in policing people's off-duty leisure or anything like that. But to say you should never be fit for duty, you can never be unfit for duty. You can never be intoxicated. I don't think it's realistic, and I don't think it's fair. Again, if I'm on call, yeah, 100%, I should never be unfit for duty. If I'm on call, and that's another thing, and I think we could talk about that a little bit. Nobody should be on call more than like a night or two. There should be a rotating schedule. I was on call for weeks on end sometimes, and honestly, it's a disaster. Especially when you're going to go out in the middle of the night, it's a disaster. Like you really takes a toll on you mentally, physically. You need proper sleep. You need proper rest. Even if it's a straight 5 hours, you need a straight 5 hours. You can't be sleeping an hour, up 3 hours, sleeping an hour, up 4 hours, sleeping 2 hours, up. You just can't do it. That's not how the human body works. I think so. If you're on call, though, absolutely, alcohol should not touch your lips. I don't care. You should have some self-control. Ron Layson says it here. Like if you made detective and it wasn't through nepotism, you should be an adult enough to download your own Uber app and get your own Uber. And I agree with you, Ron. The only thing we could do is, as supervisors, as people who are looking out for the well-being of each other, is really look out for each other. We could lead you to water. We can't make you drink. We can't make you drink. I could make sure. I'll tell you right now, I've never let anybody, whether they were my supervisor, regardless what rank they were, or however I liked them or I didn't like them. If we were ever out and somebody was like inebriated, I never let that person get behind the wheel. Never. I drove their car home. I did things that I'm like, why the hell would I do that? Because I'm like, there's times I'm bringing like my lieutenant. She's inebriated. I'm stone sober, and I'm bringing her home to her husband, and I'm like, this guy's gonna kill me. Like, he's probably gonna think like, what the hell I did to his what I did to his wife. But I'm like, I can't let this girl drive. I just can't do it. I can't. I'm not gonna be able to live with myself. I'm like, I don't care. So I would be like, bro, you're taking a ride with me. Let's go. Well, you're coming with me. Like, I'm not gonna. And now I got to explain to my wife why the hell I'm getting into a fight with another. Like, there's all these bad things that happen. But I think, we got to look out for each other. And I don't think it's the union's responsibility to do it. I think if you're going to go out with people, you got to look out for each other. And then ultimately, like you said, I think you got to plan. It's not, but to say that people aren't going to drink, how do you explain the Christmas parties that there's alcohol everywhere? People drink.
It's the most ridiculous thing. In that case, we should never have any functions. But again, what are the limits and boundaries to this program? Where could you be picked up? Do you have to be picked up inside the city? Could you be picked up outside the city? A lot of times there's functions in New Jersey. There's functions in Westchester. There's functions in Orange County. There's functions all over the place when it comes to the police department. With this Uber ride, would they pick you up outside the city? If they picked you up outside the city, would they take you back to the city? Would they take you somewhere else in a different county? So there's a lot of limits and boundaries that we're not aware of yet. What's the capabilities of this when it comes down to cost? And I think that's a great metric in comparison. What does it cost for a union to represent a cop that's in a pickle, or a detective that's in a pickle? And unfortunately, the reason why I think that the measurement is not going to be an accurate standard is, here's the reality, John. Most cops or detectives, in this case would be detectives for this union particularly, if they're in a jam or in a pickle, they're actually going to get their own attorney. So it's hard to actually measure what the metric would be in comparison to, so, I think it's kind of funny, but it's true. And I hate this whole thing of unfit for duty. I mean, what happens, John? Let's say you're out and you start getting the sniffles. You don't feel well. Maybe you're at a friend's house and you're allergic to cats. They got cats. So you take some Benadryl. And now, you know what? The Benadryl hits you and you're getting sleepy and you can't drive. You're unfit for duty. I mean, this is the most ridiculous thing. So I really think that we need to definitely change and evolve when it comes to the police department. Some of these old policies, this idea of never drinking is absolutely ridiculous. And just because you're drinking doesn't mean, I don't even forget about this whole unfit for duty thing. If you're an adult, not even just a cop, I don't think you should drink to the point that you're falling down like a complete slosh anyway, to the point that you can't stand up and you stink of booze all over you. That's absolutely ridiculous, especially an NYPD employee, a member of the service. I don't think you should be drinking to that point either. But this idea of unfit for duty, sometimes, what is the threshold? If you went out and you had 2 or 3 drinks over a course of a couple hours and you're at a party, that's the most ridiculous thing to say you're unfit for duty. I think, you understand, I see you shaking your head, so you agree. It's just be an adult. So, Eddie West, shout out to you, brother. $28 coffee donuts, that's right. Submitting my 28 to the desk. Morning, lieutenants. Hey, John, about that CD. One of the mine. Eric, what's up, my guy? I'll bring the cigars. You bring the donuts. John gets the coffee. Absolutely. I'm thinking, brother, one day we need to have cigars, the finest unfiltered, filtered cigars. That's what I've been thinking about. So if anybody has any ideas, get some labels. I'm thinking eventually we get some cigars, the finest unfiltered, filtered. So, and shout out to VSS Ventura's, brother. Here we go. $10 more coffee and donuts. He says, if you have a drinking problem or cannot control yourself, that's on you to seek help and or become more disciplined. People have no self-control or fortitude. The union should have zero to do with it. I mean, I think it's a nice thing that the unions want to help out. Again, I think that's the comparison I was trying to say before. You shouldn't be drinking to the point that you're falling down anyway. If you're drinking to the point that you're falling down, either you're completely juvenile or you have an alcohol problem. I mean, an alcohol problem. So to me, it's one of the two. I wouldn't drink to the point and fall down anyway. I'm sure you would agree, John.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I never let myself go, especially, I grew up in the city. I was always around the city. Never became a cop in the city. So I kind of knew everybody. And then I knew all the bad guys. I was like, I never felt comfortable. I actually stopped going to a gym because I was like, I don't want to get a dumbbell off the back of my head, like while I'm working out, and so like I started, like, that's how I started working out in my garage and at my house. Not that I would never go to a gym. I would go to gyms, but like there was a lot of gyms I stopped going to because of the people that went there. And not because I was afraid. I just wanted to avoid it. Like, I looked at the gym as like my own personal like meditation time. And I just didn't want to be around other people either. And so like there's a lot of things that changed about my life when I became a cop. Even going out, there were places I wouldn't go. I'm like, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I know who's there. I know who's going to be there. There's no reason for me to be there. And there were places sometimes I wanted to go. Like all the girls were going there. There's a lot, and I'm like, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be disciplined. And I think that ultimately, and that's ultimately what I loved about the NYPD is it really set me on a real disciplined path that led me to be a better person, a better adult, a better man, a better neighbor, a better, it really matured me. I really went from being a boy to being a man in the NYPD. And I think the responsibility of that, somebody said it here. They said about if these guys are responsible enough to carry a gun, they can be responsible enough to call a cab or plan ahead. Listen, I at the end of the day, like I said, I think that I could see what they're doing, but I could see kind of some good in it, but how far does it go? And then, it kind of really, it pisses me off a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Like if the LBA did this, I'd be a little pissed off, and I'd be sending a lot of emails, and that's why I'm kind of like, I'm going to bash Scott about this too, because where are you guys on Marlin Bethel? Where are you? I mean, it's disgusting, bro. It is absolutely disgusting that you guys are nowhere. I can't even, I wouldn't be able to put my head on the pillow at night if I was a member of the union and we weren't doing anything about this guy that received zero due process and zero charges from the NYPD, never went to a department trial. And yet we see all these corrupt people, and you're not only are you not saying anything about what happened, you're going to defend them and you're going to go the whole nine for them. And it's disgusting. It's honestly disgusting. And then Eric, how about the people that get cancer on this job? How about the people that are sick? How about the people that got sick kids? How about the people that really are in a bad way about a lot of things? Do we get them rights? Because I don't think we do.
That's a great point. I would love to see, if we're talking about union dues actually going towards helping cops and detectives, things of that sort, I would love to see money catered to that, right? You have a sick kid and some medicine is so expensive, it's not covered by insurance, and to come up with that money, I'd love to see that instead of having these 10-13 parties, something of that sort. I agree with you. Honestly, I think the idea is good, to want to help, but I just think it doesn't really make sense. This would be far too costly, and what are the limitations also? I mean, is it only if you're at a NYPD sanctioned event? What if you're just out, you and your wife or you and your buddies, and you're just out on a regular day and you just, you didn't eat all day and you end up having a couple of drinks and you feel like, you shouldn't get behind the wheel. Would it apply to this program? And the other thing, Patrick Donahue, don't get mad at me. You got to laugh at this, but this is what's going on right now with the department. Does the DA get a kickback from these Uber rides? I mean, is there some type of kickback here? I don't know. I gotta laugh at that. But ultimately how would this really be paid? I mean, do you take the ride and does that eventually somehow you get a bill? Does the detective himself get a bill and pay for it? Is this the union funding it? There's a lot of things that haven't been ironed out. If let's say I was, rhetorically speaking, let's say I'm a detective and I take that Uber ride, and let's say it's $20. If I pay that back, how much is the union taking any of that money besides Uber? That's what I mean by talking about a kickback. So there's a lot of questions with this. I think we could put money and resources into far better things to help cops. And ultimately, I think the number one thing we should help cops is getting them the best, or detectives, the best attorneys that money can buy. No longer should detectives in a jam or a pickle have to get their own attorneys. You should have the best attorneys that could do the job. That's a good start right there. And we're talking about medical. Absolutely, I'm agree. Patrick Donahue who puts Eric Dibb, it's okay to agree to disagree. You got it, brother. You know it.
Yeah, and another comment Pat Donahue says here. He says the concept is altruistic. Altruistic. I had to look it up, Pat, because I didn't really go to school that long. So, showing a disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others, unselfish. So he says it's a good idea. It's an unselfish idea, right? The concept is in its appearance, but there appears to be a sense of urgency in announcing the DEA Ride Safe app with Uber. Yeah, I think that's a good segue into getting into the article a little bit, because I think what you're saying, I agree with you 100%. I think it sounds very rushed and not well thought out at all. So we got about 600 people on here this morning. Appreciate you guys for joining us. First segment that we're talking about right now is we're talking about the NYPD's Detective Endowment Association. That's the union that covers about, I believe it's like 5,000 members in the rank of detective. And they're creating an app that partners with Uber that detectives, if they're out drinking, can use to get a ride home, and it will be paid for out of union dues. So we're just exploring that topic. We kind of named it. We named the title that, it says we named the title on the artwork. It says NYPD Detectives Endowment Association partners with Uber so that detectives who are unfit for duty can get a ride home, because according to NYPD guidelines, you're never allowed to be unfit for duty, meaning you're never allowed to drink alcohol. And, it's a completely robotic stance. And I think it's an outdated stance. And we're kind of like delving into all of those issues. So appreciate you guys joining us for this morning. So if anyone has any thoughts or questions, feel free. We'll try to get to you in the chat. I'm a little bit behind, not going to lie, but we'll keep an eye out. We'll try to get to you. So.
Who is it here? The Finest? Yeah, Finest 147. Shout out to you, brother. Says 100, John. My wife had breast cancer, and her bosses shut her down from doing overtime, and the union did nothing about it. So this is some stuff right here, honestly, that this is where I get perturbed. We have a member of the service. His wife has breast cancer, and we're not helping. That's what I'm saying. We talk about family. Where is the family? Where is the family when it comes to the NYPD and the unions? The only time that they're family, John, we say it all the time, is in death. Your wife had to sustain breast cancer, and they can't even accommodate her by giving her overtime and, useful to you. Meanwhile, we have people right now getting excessive amount and over $200,000 in overtime. It's insane because they're in the circle of nepotism. This is where I like to see the union help out. If we can have some funding, and John, I would do it, and I know you would also. If we had to pay a little bit extra, and that went to a separate fund, a health and welfare fund, to help out with someone that their wife or husband, or God forbid their kid, has cancer, and they need the assistance, because these prescriptions right now are insane. $40,000, $50,000 for 30-day supply of pills. It's insane. So, Finance 147, my heart goes out to you, brother. That's absolutely ridiculous. This is where we should be helping. Absolutely. The idea of Uber, it sounds good, but it's a little juvenile. When you really get below the layers and through the surface, it's kind of juvenile. I mean, you're an adult. You should take it upon yourself to say, you know what? I had too many. I'm leaving my car here, and I'm going home. I'll figure it out tomorrow. If I have to take an Uber back to work, if the whole day costs you $1,000, that's a lot better than getting jammed up, than, God forbid, hurting somebody. Your name is going to be smeared through the paper, and that DWI is going to be a stain. It's going to take years to actually create distance between yourself and that DWI. So I think that we can put our money in our assistance and help in a lot different places. But the good thing about this, with bad comes good, is that we're having the conversation of how we could actually help our union members. So Finance 147, I'm sorry that you had to go through that, and I hope that your wife is doing well. God bless you, brother.
Yeah. So before I start reading the article, I just want to bring up one thing. I just want to get your thoughts on this too. I was always told, like, by all the older guys, like, you don't want your face in the paper. You don't want anyone knowing you're going to be a cop. You don't want, like, accept these awards. And, go get your picture in the paper. You don't want everybody knowing your business. Enough people know you're ready. You don't need the whole world to know it. Like, keep to yourself. And I think that like Twitter and the job social media practices have done away with all of that. So just like a heads up, and I'm a big supporter of perception of law enforcement, Hakeem Gibson. I think he's a great guy. I think he does a lot of great work. He takes great pictures. But it came to my attention that a lot of his photos are being used on the 50A, right? To used on your 50A. So I think going forward, Hakeem, I'm going to reach out to you about this too. I haven't, but if we could just blur out the cops' names and their badge numbers. And, the same's true when they come on the podcast. Like Marlin's on the podcast, his now 50A is a photo of him being on this podcast. So this kid that we did an episode on, and I think we identified him, and I don't remember whatever his name is, the loser that works for Google. What he does is he siphons through social media, and then he uses that to update it. Now you have a cool photo on your 50A, and if you don't care, you don't care. That's fine. But why I think it's relevant is, you're basically identifying yourself as a member of the service who's drunk to this Uber driver. And how could this be used against you going forward should you get into a situation? You should know that if you get into a incident that night when you went out, whether it be to a restaurant or to a bar, more than likely Internal Affairs is going, or FID, or whoever is investigating you, is going to go right back to that restaurant and that bar, and they're going to say, "Can I see the tab?" Right? And if your credit card's linked to, "Oh, I had 20 drinks, I ordered 20 drinks," you might have bought 20 drinks for the whole bar. They're going to use that as evidence against you that you had 20 drinks yourself. They're going to interview witnesses. Did you see that guy? Did you see that handsome bald guy with the gray beard? How many drinks did he have? And now they're going to interview the Uber driver. And basically, you use this app to say that you are unfit for duty. So you're already putting all of this evidence against you when you might not have done anything wrong. You're already kind of putting yourself in a bad light, and you're identifying yourself as a member of the service. And, there's things that I see often that happen. I remember specifically a cop getting jammed up for falling asleep in an Uber drunk. And they called 911, and it turned out he was a cop, and that cop got all types of jammed up, got transferred, lost his overtime. And I'm like, wow, if you're an accountant and you fall asleep in a cab, what happens to you? Nothing. You wake up, you go to work late the next day, and, you guys tell a story, you laugh about it. But when you're a cop, that sets your career back forever. Like, this guy did the right thing. He got in a cab. He didn't drive drunk. I mean, should you ever get inebriated like that? No. But he did. But he did the right thing, and he still got jammed up for it. So it's like, do we want to? Yeah, hey, look at me. Look at me. I went out drinking. Yeah, I went out drinking. Yeah, so everybody knows. I went out drinking. I went out drinking. So, in case I was reporting corruption and you want to get me off the job now because you know what you and your boss were doing as far as it relates to promotions, taking envelopes. Now you just gave him an easy one. What do you think about that?
It's no surprise to me. That's why, unfortunately, with the NYPD, we turned something that could be a good thing into something that's negative, and you would actually inhibit detectives from actually taking the opportunity to utilize this Uber app, because it's going to be something that's in your head, because you're basically self-reporting that you're, according to the NYPD, you're self-reporting that you're unfit for duty, right? I'm unable to drive home for X reasons, and I'm calling this app through the Detectives Endowment Association to take me home or to take me to my next location. So you're self-reporting that you're unfit for duty. That's why I was trying to ask earlier if it would be possible to somehow report it anonymously. Could you call? Could you call, get that Uber and get a number assigned to you? Like, hey, you're number 54. And they come pick you up, and you tell the Uber driver number 54 and never give your name. If they could do some way where it would be anonymous, I think that would be a good step to it if they're actually going to utilize this program instead of using your name and just a number or some type of, or maybe a code or a code name. for those reasons. Because if you go to use your name, I think a lot of people would be timid, and so would I. I'm like, you know what? Like, for instance, when they give us those Metro cards, I never use this. I've never used this Metro card ever, right? This is a trail of where I was that day, whether I was on duty or off duty. I'll never do that. If I'm at work and I'm chasing a perpetrator into the subway system, I'm jumping that turnstile, or I'm going through the gate with my shield. I'm not utilizing that swipe, or especially some people I know that use it off duty. I'm not using it. That's just another way for them to track me. So absolutely not.
Oh, I agree. Even the plaque, I never used it. I was dating a girl once, and I would park in this no standing, and it was like the biggest bullcrap no standing I've ever seen in my life. And the reason I parked in the no standing was because there was another cop that parked in the no standing too, and I didn't understand what the no standing was about. So I was like, it was like a real tight. There was no parking ever. So, but whatever. I would use the plaque to park in the no standing. Anyway, I got pulled into the ICO's office. There's like 20 IAB logs on me for parking in the no standing over the 20. So when she pulls me in, she's like, "You parking on this block?" And now I don't even know, because I'm like, whatever. I'm messing around with this girl, and I don't even know the block that I'm parking on. I know the girl's block, but the side block that I actually leave my car on, I just forgot the block's name. So she tells me the block, and I'm like, "No, I never parked there. Hell are you talking about?" And then I'm thinking about it. I was like, "Park there." She's like, "Wow, it's a problem because there's a lot of logs here about you parking there." And I'm like, "Wait a minute." I was like, No. I'm sorry. I take that back. I do park there. So, and then for days and days and days, now I'm trying to find the other cop that parks there to let him know, like, "Yo, don't park there no more. Somebody's calling IAB." And I realized after about 2 months that he's still parking there because he's the one that called IAB on me. He was mad that I was parking in his spot. Nobody else called on me. And I didn't return the favor to him, but I let him know who he was when I seen him. We're like, and that was another thing. And then from that point on, I never used my plaque. Never. I was like, you know what? I didn't even get it. I never even would get it. I got a plaque like towards the end of my career again, just because I needed it to get into like 1PP and stuff like that. But I never even used it. I was like, I'm not. It's just a complete tracking device. Stuck in the system says it's a security issue. Who holds that data? And that's another point that we're not looking at too. Is now not only did you just identify yourself as a cop, you're like, "Oh yeah, and by the way, I live here." It's valuable information. I live here. And then how does it get abused? I mean, I think that's all things that we could get into. And just real quick, I just want to give a shout out to Amazing Ant 999 to the podcast. She said, "Good morning, lieutenants. 100% regarding more support for MOS. For all of us affected by World Trade Center, a serious line of duties and navigating the issues with minimal support compounds an already stressful situation. Prayers and heart." Yeah, absolutely. It's and that's I think that's what where our take is right now on it. It's like, it's nice, but what about this? What about this? What about them? What about that? It opens up, like, it really opens up. Like, is this what the union should get involved in?
I'm not laughing. Amazing Ant, good morning. Thank you so much for the coffee and donuts. I'm laughing. KB's response is hilarious. Next up is, I can't even get this out. Next up is free STD testing for 1PP detectives who get grade.
I honestly think that's needed. I think that's more relevant. I think it's more relevant. It applies to working conditions.
Hey, I hear the going rate for a promotion is $3,500. What do you get? $3,500 cash. You can get a promotion.
Listen, it's working conditions. Working conditions.
How many Uber rides could you get for $3,500? Crazy 10-7. Shout out to you. $4.99 coffee and donuts. That's right. Here we go. Early in the morning. The union should be spending money on calling out and exposing corruption in the upper echelons. Not this garbage. I pay the feed unfiltered dues. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, they should be supporting you and fighting corruption, but they're not doing that. Their response in this overtime scandal was, well, the reason why there's excessive amount of overtime is because there's a shortage of officers and they're being overworked. That's not what we're talking about at all. That's why I had said on X, formerly Twitter, I said, I can't tell by your post. Are you advocating for the men and women? Or are you protecting the upper echelon? Because I can't tell by your post at all. So, is this one thing nice to see about the detectives or any union? Yeah, it's a nice step to do something for the people. But could this program, after the different layers that we're speaking on, could it actually work? I don't think so. Honestly, I don't see it working. There's just too many. There's too many Irish pennants to pick at here.
Yeah, and then somebody, Tom. Yeah, 100%. I think Uber is a great invention. I've been using it a lot. I use it a lot. I do. I'm not gonna lie. I'm lazy. I'm like, I don't have to deal with parking. I don't have to deal with that. Like I said, if I'm going out that night, I just add it. It's all right, $100, $200, whatever it is. I add it. You guys are making big money now, right? Everyone likes to knock on my pension. You left early. You're an idiot. Your pension's crap. Okay. Well, I don't. I'm not gonna get stuck in the situation to get in the DWI. I'm gonna just take an Uber. I'll pay the $200. So Prime Timer says, "What about the union dues for getting hit for congestion pricing?" LOL. It's funny. I know you're joking, but so a lot of people were saying when I posted this, they're like, "I'll just use it to avoid the congestion pricing." And I'm like, like I said, I think you're going to get some real financially savvy guys that are going to be like, I'm taking a bit. I'm allowed to 3 Uber rides. I'm getting my 3 Uber rides, whatever it is. And him and the wife going to a Billy Joel concert, one day of avoiding congestion pricing. He's building this in. He's got it all in his little book. He's got it all in his union book. And he's like, I got to get my thing. I worked with a couple of guys like that. They're hysterical. They're smart. I was like, I wish I could be a little bit like this guy, but I just can't. I don't care enough. But he's gonna have it in his book. Yeah, I got January's coming, bro. I got 2 more rides I gotta take. I gotta take them.
Those are the guys that didn't even drink. They're gonna go up to the bar and just put their finger across the they call it the hair of the dog. All the beer that's sitting on the those mats on the bar. They put their finger and put it all over their clothes so they can call for an Uber ride. But yeah, I mean, listen, it's a nice idea, but I just don't think it can work. If you actually talk about there's limitations, there's boundaries to this, how would it ultimately work when it comes to cost? You get picked up in the city. What's the mileage? I mean, how far will they take you? How often will they take you? I know according to the article, it lays out the hours that would be available. But how often would they take you? I don't understand. Why not just call it Uber on your own and pay whatever it costs? No one knows about it. It's just to you. Even if you pay $200, it's worth it. You know what? With the amount of overtime that's going on right now, you can make up for it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
let's get into the article.
All right, let's get into the article. Junior says, let's pray Shell avails himself of this new perk, or will he continue to use Kaz as his chauffeur? I mean, he already has his own Uber, so it doesn't matter. You could find him. You could find him nightly either at Pippin's, Salty Dog, or what's the steakhouse? Whatever. But he has his own driver, fancy big SUV. So he's good. He's not getting DWI. His driver might, but he's not. And he won't get to fail as supervisor either, as we're seeing here. So this is the article. Comes out from the New York Post. New York Post. Tina Moore wrote the article. So the union that represents city detectives is set to unveil a first-in-the-country program to provide NYPD investigators a ride home if they're too drunk to drive, the Post has learned, because the union president had called them up and said, look, another first. First it was they were going to vote on who the union was going to endorse, and then they never endorsed it, even though they spent money to create the app, and 94% of detectives voted to back Donald Trump, and no one ever found out. So the Detectives Endowment Association plans to launch an app this month in partnership with Uber that will use union funds to pick up gumshoes who have had one too many, officials say. We've had so many issues with DWIs coming from parties and coming home from different events. A 37-year-old NYPD detective who lives in Long Island told the Post, it's a great benefit to not have to worry, to just use the app and get a ride home. Detectives will call the DEA's toll-free line to reach a duty officer who's on call 24/7, according to the app's developer, Lee Reeves of the New Jersey-based Intelligent Design. An officer on duty will take the call and then schedule the pickup, he added. A union can watch the car's progress to make sure the detectives get home safely. The service will be available 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. The app will be available to all 5,500 members, and the union will monitor the usage and make sure the service isn't being abused. So basically, there's no safeguards in place, just like all of the overtime safeguards that actually we had in the NYPD that just weren't being adhered to. Okay, but you don't even have any safeguard. Okay, gotcha. Our first DEA responsibility is to assist in any way possible the greatest detectives in the world, said Monroe, who came up with the idea. I don't think that's it, but whatever. The innovative program is part of the effort. The union will track usage since it's unclear how much the program will cost yet, he added. Oh, great program. It's not online. We don't know how much it costs. Union members don't know what the limits are. There's no boundaries set for it. We don't know what the limits will be, how they'll be monitored. Got it. The initiative comes after a trio of police officers were busted for DWI last month. 15 detectives have been arrested for DWI in the past 4 years, according to union data. 138-year-old detective was previously arrested for DWI, said he would have used the app if it would have been available. It's too much work to go about trying to get a cab when you don't have the app. So you make the decision that's more convenient, which is your own car, the detective said. But if it was something that you already had through the union and they were footing the bill, I think guys would use it. I don't know. Again, like I said, I think just because it's free, you're going to get people that ultimately, out of laziness, not use it. It's not about the money. I don't think it's about the money. It's never about the money.
Yeah, I think for the most part, when we're talking about it, I think you're right. I think we pretty much can agree it's not about the money. It's more about logistics. It's more about not planning your night ahead or your day ahead. What I'm curious about also, as we didn't mention, is this available to retirees also? Is this only active detectives? Is this available to retirees that are still members? So there's a lot of questions here, right? What we know the time, but are they going to be specific days? Are you going to call Monday at 2 a.m.? I mean, could you take that Uber from work if you have an issue with your car, if your car breaks down? Do you have to be drinking? Do you have to say, yes, I had too many, take me home? I mean, there's a lot of questions about this that have to be ironed out. So which is why I think it's a good initiative, but one of those things where it's like bad judgment. I don't think this could work out. I just don't see it working. There's just too many questions, too many factors. Like I said, is it that simple? I mean, like, what if you just want to take the Uber? Like you said, you have 3 Uber rides in a certain amount of period. Who knows? What if you just don't want to pay the Verrazano Bridge and you live in Staten Island? I mean, there's so many factors to this. That's what I'm saying. Do you have to say, hey, I had 3 drinks, I want an Uber? Do you have to admit that you're unfit for duty to actually take part in this program? I don't see it working. I don't see it working, honestly. And if anything comes out of this, the message should be to all the NYPD members, just take the goddamn Uber, just spend the $200, spend the $500, whatever it costs, leave your car wherever it is. It's just possessions. You're home safe. That's one less thing to worry about.
No, I agree. I agree. So Pat Donahue says, full disclosure, I'm a recovering alcoholic, 25 years sober. Hopefully I can continue that streak today. The idea of a safe ride for MOS is a good one, but the MPOS is on the MOS. 100%. It's always going to come down to you. We're not, you can't really, like I said, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So I know the last 2 episodes, we spoke a lot about the unions and we gave a lot of opinion. And it's our honest opinion, whether you guys agree with it or don't, that's fine. But just, we've done this before. So I think we should just do this now. We sent a formal email to Pat Hendry over a year ago. He never responded. But just so every union member, every board member, every union president is aware, you do have an open invite to come on this podcast at any time if you'd like to discuss anything we're talking about. we could set that up. Just so you're aware, if we haven't made that perfectly clear over and over again, we will send formal emails out to everyone just so that you guys are aware, because I think it's important that people understand that the people that want to lead and the people that say that they're protecting you and they're serving you don't want to stand up to any type of adversity. And I don't even believe this is much adversity at all. I say, you see myself and Eric's interview style. It's pretty, it's, you know, it's your show. You tell everybody what you got to tell. We'll ask a couple of questions, respectful manner. I don't think it's like really a hard game. So I think that, you know, we're going to have another mayoral candidate on here. And he is a card-carrying member of Socialist, and he's willing to come on here. And the fact that a Socialist is reaching out to come out on the podcast, but a president of a union that supposedly supports the rank and file of the NYPD doesn't, that tells me everything I need to know about these people. So prove me wrong. Ball's in your court, guys.
This is a great podcast and a great platform and a great opportunity for the unions to actually sit down in a long form and actually talk about something that could be beneficial to their members. I think this is a great opportunity. It doesn't necessarily have to be an interview-based type conversation. It could be a roundtable, just talking about some type of messaging. You know, this information that you want to get out in long form about this program and on a live where we can engage active retired members who have questions about this program. You might get ideas that actually helps your program. I mean, as we're talking about this, we're seeing different opinions and different layers are starting to come out about this program, and we're coming up with different ideas, and we're seeing it from different aspects as we talk about it. So it's a hell of an opportunity. We sent Pat Hendry a very articulate, very professional email, invited him on the podcast at the time when he was a running candidate for actual PBA president. We never even received a response. We want to talk about a level of respect. We never even received a response. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Just shows what you deal with. I have no problem if you deny or decline the request. That's fine. But the same token, he should have responded. It was, we know that you received it. We have receipt that you received the email, but not giving a response. Just that silence. Immediately, I saw cowardice in it. You should respond, especially since your members, the overwhelming majority of your members, watch the podcast. So this is great messaging. If you care about the members, this should be the platform. This should be the podcast, especially for the unions. This is a force from outside the job to help within. We're an additional voice, or the voice right now, to help the rank and file. And the unions should absolutely take that opportunity. If they don't, I question their ability and their actual care and compassion for their members. And is it just about union dues, or do they really care? And those questions, honestly, are not looking too good.
Yeah. Pat Donahue said the podcast would be a great platform for DE President Scott Monroe to appear on and give a deep dive into the Safe Bride program, original discussion, review, and rollout. I agree. And, obviously we could host a town hall too and have the members come on here as well to give their opinions and their questions. So Scott, we'll be sending you a formal email. I don't know if the guys that are on here are monitoring or just listening. But we will send you a formal email with an open invite, not just for the Safe Ride program, but for anything. So, but I think that's the most unfair criticism we get, is that we attack people and that we're blowhards and we don't understand anything, when we're like, hey, I don't know. So help me to understand it. Come on here and tell us what we're saying that's wrong. And they're not utilizing it. They take an adversarial stance towards us. And that's fair, but you're taking an adversarial stance towards the consensus of the rank and file by doing so, because the things that I'm saying, the things that Eric are saying, are the things that are being talked about on the job. So you could dispel a lot of stuff that you believe is nonsense or not true by actually having a conversation. So you not doing so tells me everything I need to know. Same's true for the upper echelon of the NYPD. So I think we beat that home. But last question I got just before we get off of this Safe Ride program. Do you think it's something that you will see in 2 years that is still available? to detectives?
Unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, no. Unless it's, I just don't see it right now. And I think honestly, ultimately, if we just look at the surface, I think it's a good idea. I do think it's a nice gesture. I do think it's a good idea. I do think it's a step in the right direction of the union actually wanting to help. So, as I said, that's why this conversation is good. Maybe this idea of helping out could be given on another avenue. Maybe the union could help out when it comes to prescription plans or providing some type of service for people that maybe if they go into chemo treatments or something like that, or help out maybe in a daycare program with kids, whatever the case is. Maybe we can find another avenue because I think with this, there's too many questions. There's too much cost. It could be a program that's abused. It could be very intrusive on behalf of the internal affairs inspections for the NYPD. So I don't think so. But I like the idea that we're having these conversations. Veronica Electron, hysterical. She says, can you request Charlie on the Parkway to drive you home? Yes, it could give you the safe way. And shout out to Jonathan Fredericks, Coffee and Donuts. That's right, $1.99. Scott Monroe should show up to explain the program. Absolutely. That's what we're saying here, right? And my message to the unions, we know that you watch the podcast. We understand at the inception of this podcast, you might have not had any fruitful knowledge of John and myself. And you may have been weary of what was our intentions. But I think now that you can see that over 2 years into podcasting, that our message is about helping the rank and file. It's about calling out perspective, how policing in America has interjected infected policing. We want a better version of the police department. We want to eradicate this corruption that's going on at the upper echelon. We want to eradicate nepotism. And ultimately, we want to support the members. So, to me, if you don't take this opportunity, any union member on the board or union president, if you don't take this opportunity to come on this platform, I actually question, do you really care about the membership? And this is an avenue that has never been provided before. This is a new genre, an ability, an opportunity that should be taken in long form where you could actually speak to the members. And in a live like this, where your members could actually conceal their identity and speak freely. This is the closest thing we could get to as far as First Amendment rights as an active police officer right now as we speak.
No, yeah, I agree, dude. I absolutely agree. So yeah, shout out to Jonathan Fredericks, another recently retired member of the NYPD. Love to get on here. I believe Pat Donahue is going to come on too. Love to hear his perspective, and and those will be just interview styles. We just want to hear about your careers, your life, your thoughts. So and then anybody else that's retired wants to come on here, feel free, reach out. We want to do a lot more interviews this year, and it doesn't necessarily have to be on the live. I traditionally don't like doing interviews on the live. I like it to be just a more intimate setting. But we'll leave that up to the guests. You guys want to come on, you want to do a live, you want to get involved in the chat, let's we could do that too. To me, it's very distracting to try to have an interview and to monitor the chat and that. But I like to chat for like after you already know somebody. You know what I mean? We already know you, we know everything. Come on a second time, third time, talk about something. So that's me, but I don't care. So yeah, we're definitely gonna do a lot more. Definitely going to do a lot more of that this year. But just my last thing to the DEA, Marlin Bethel. What are we doing? What are we doing, Scott? What are we going to pretend he doesn't exist? You're just going to say, "Wow, it was a horrible thing." And the reason I bring that up, and a lot of people, I get a lot of shit for bringing him up all the time, and it matters to me. It matters to me for this because it's not just that reason, right? It's not just it's over. The mandate happened. There was some horrible things that happened, and we need to move past. First of all, we're going to right that wrong, and we're going to right that wrong whether the unions are on board with us or not. So for the unions, if you're not on board with us, I'm letting you know, if we go through this whole process and when we right this wrong, you're nowhere to be found. I'm going to remind everybody every day. That's one. But two, you sent a message to the city of New York that they could do anything to your members. It doesn't necessarily have to be the mandate. It could be anything else that a detective or cop or whoever falls under your membership, depending on what your union is, does not have to receive due process, does not have to be charged administratively or criminally, and doesn't have to get a fair department trial and could be terminated in the New York City Police Department. That's the standard that Eric Adams set. And you allowed it to happen, and you're going to allow this to take precedent. So your ultimate job, you're failing at, and you failed at. And I'm not sitting here saying that, oh, you guys suck and I hate all you guys. No, I'm saying let's correct this. We have the ability to correct this now. Let's do it. Whatever happened, happened. It happened in the past. Let's correct it. Let's fix it so it can never happen again. Not just a mandate. This could be anything. This could be anything. Switch it to any topic. You're not entitled to due process. If Marlin Bethel didn't receive due process and the union did absolutely nothing for him, he didn't receive a department charge. He didn't receive a department trial. He wasn't criminally charged with anything. It could happen to every single one of you. So when a detective calls me and says, why am I bringing up Marlin? I'm like, do you know you're directly working against yourself? Do you understand that? Do you understand that when I'm bringing up Marlin Bethel, I'm talking about you? Do you understand that I'm talking about every detective in that union? I'm talking about every cop. I'm talking about the chiefs. You deserve due process. Only Eric Adams deserves due process with his smoke that's pouring out from flumes from every building that he surrounds himself with. It's so I think it's really big, and I think it's time that you guys get on board. We don't have to like each other, but I think that we should work together.
Well, we could prove it right here. If Marlin Bethel is actually value to the Detectives Endowment Association, if they actually care about Marlin Bethel and other people that have been terminated by an illegal mandate. Simple question, John. Can Marlin Bethel call that app and can Marlin Bethel make that call and get an Uber ride? Would Marlin Bethel be entitled to an Uber ride? Probably not. They would say you're no longer a detective. You're no longer paying union dues. They'd probably tell him he couldn't take that Uber ride. And again, that's just an assumption. Now, Scott Monroe, if he came on this podcast, that'd be a great opportunity to say, hey, what do you feel about Marlin Bethel right now? He should be working. This is an illegal mandate. Arguably, we believe he's going to get his job back. He'll be reinstated with back pay, especially if Jim Walden gets into office or if someone else is willing to take the same stance now that Jim Walden brought that up. So if Marlin Bethel will get his job back with back pay, right now the Detectives Endowment Association should support Marlin, and Marlin should be allowed to take part in this program if he wants to take an Uber, if this actually ever goes into effect. Which I hope so. And Marlin Bethel is one of many. And I hope this doesn't happen again to anyone like Marlin Bethel. Patrick Donahue, shout out to you, brother. This is hysterical. Intimate setting. Are you suggesting the rooftop of an RV at sunset while enjoying cigars, coffee, donuts, and cappuccinos? Absolutely. I think one day we should have an event at one of the RV sites. We got some heated pools, hot tubs. You can smoke some cigars, sit on the RV rooftops. It's a hell of a time. I can show you the RV life. But, John, don't you think I'm right? I mean, all kidding aside, Marlin Bethel should be allowed to take part in this program. His rights were violated. The law was violated. Arguably, he should be working. I think the evidence is behind that. Why are we still beating this drum?
I mean, to me, I don't even see how he's not a member of the DEA. So you guys kicked him out too without him receiving due process. Is that going to be the stance? He's not a DEA member because he was terminated. So you guys kicked him out too. That's just disgusting. And again, that's something that could apply to everyone. I agree with you. I think that not only should Marlin Bethel still be a member of the DEA, he should be an integral member of the DEA. I think he should be on the DEA's payroll until they right this wrong. Just my opinion. You have all these other lackeys you're paying. You could pay Marlin, who's actually highly skilled. And in case you don't watch what's going on, he's a quiet guy, but he knows a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff that's coming out is a direct result of Marlin Bethel. The success of this podcast is a direct result of the work behind the scenes of Marlin Bethel as well. So, I think it's time to right that wrong. And yeah, absolutely, he should. To me, he shouldn't be a dues paying member. He should be a member that's getting paid by the dues.
Hands down, absolutely. That's what I would say right now. I don't want to put her name out there. She actually was a fantastic cop. Well, she was wrongfully terminated. She got into a pickle, and she works for the LBA right now. So I don't want to mention her name, but she was a hell of a cop. She did a great job. She should never been terminated. And the LBA hired her, and she's been working for them for a long time. So, yes, Marlin Bethel and many other detectives should have been hired by the Detectives Endowment Association. Absolutely say, hey, we'll keep you afloat. This is how we're going to support you. We'll make the same salary you had with the NYPD until we can get you back. I wish money would go in that form when it comes to the union rather than this Uber ride. Again, I think this Uber ride is great. It's a great idea, but I think this Uber ride is really personalized. Really comes down to personal fortitude, just saying, hey, you know what? I got to take that Uber home. It's the easiest thing to do, just to press on your app, press the address you're going to, and it goes right to your credit card, and you pay it. What's the big deal? Do we need a whole program for that? No, I don't think so.
No, I totally agree with you. Just real quick, two quick topics, and then we'll get on to another big one. We got about 750 people on here. Thanks for joining this morning. We just spoke about the Detectives Endowment Association partnering with Uber to give detectives a ride home when they're under the weather or they had one too many and they shouldn't drive. So we gave that thought. You could go back, you could rewind that, you could watch that on YouTube, on X, on any of the major platforms that we stream onto or that are on the audio, Apple, Spotify, etc. So what I got up on the screen right now is a little case update about my case. A lot of people keep asking me what's going on. So John McCarry versus the City of New York, disgraced Dr. Jay Vollmer, and former Deputy Commissioner of the NYPD's Equity Inclusion Bureau, Tanya Meisenholder. So the city had moved to push my case federally, which I thought was weird. And I'm like, wow, why the hell would they seek to push my case federally? And I was going to be apt to say, well, then if it's going to go federal, let's move it to Florida federal court. But then only days later after doing that early in 25, the city now pushed to move my case back from federal court to state court. Something that's notable on this form that I have up, this is all public record. City of New York is being represented by, obviously, New York Corporation Counsel. The disgraced Dr. Jay Vollmer, who clearly perjured himself, is also being represented by New York City Corporation Counsel, but the NYPD's Deputy Commissioner of Equity Inclusion, former Tanya Meisenholder, who made the statements and agreed with the statements, I should say, on a podcast that we played on here for you, and that was called The Analysis of the NYPD's Diversity and Equity Inclusion Division, is not being represented by the City of New York currently. I don't know what that's about. I just thought it was interesting. So I just wanted to give that update real quick because I know a lot of you keep asking what's going on with the case. So yeah, we're in court. We're going to move forward. There's a couple of integral cases that are going to play out. I'm going to bring you a lot of that stuff, a lot of the depositions that come out and the testimony and the comments from the judge as well. I was trying to get back to the city this week. I'm just not going to be able to do it. I got too many moving parts in my life. Yeah, so the fight goes on with that. But that's pretty interesting, right, Eric, that she's not being represented?
Yeah, if you remember my response, we spoke about this, and I said, who's the knuckle dragger now? So that's my response to that. Absolutely. Listen, goes around, comes around. So you know what? The fact that she's not being represented, maybe now she'll start telling the truth. Maybe she'll start telling the truth and start opening up that can of worms that opens up from the inside. That's what I like to see.
Yeah, so another quick topic, real quick. We just had a mayoral candidate, Jim Walden, former prominent attorney, former prominent prosecutor and attorney, and prominent attorney in New York City, Jim Walden, on the podcast. He's running for New York City mayor. Everyone was, there was a lot of comments. Who is this guy? This guy's a nobody. And I'm like, I don't know, man. This guy's a major player. This guy knows everybody. This guy's going to be big in this race. And prior to him coming on the podcast, I said, yeah, if I had to say right now, if there was an election in New York City, he'd be at 1%. I said, but after he comes on this podcast, after his fundraising numbers come out and people start to understand his platform, he's going to be surging in the polls, and he's going to be a major player. And he just established himself as a major player in the room. So for this reporting period, his first reporting period, where people like Brad Lander, Scott Stringer, and all of these other candidates have been, I think they've had 2 quarters in front of Jim. Jim out fundraised all of them. He raised $630,000 in his mayoral campaign in his first reporting period. That is second to only Eric Adams, who has a war chest. Cuomo enters his name in the race. He's also going to have a war chest from his existing campaigns. I think he has a lot of money in there, and I expect to see that donations in there. But Jim Walden has just based upon his platform and his strong anti-corruption platform and his common sense platform, in my opinion, he's just changed the face of the mayoral race. Jim Walden has stated he will rehire individuals that were wrongfully terminated, like Marlin Bethel. We're going to continue to hone in on that conversation. I'm going to meet with Jim in the near future. I believe Eric's going to meet with him as well to discuss that and many other topics. So I think it's I'm actually wishing Jim good luck in this. Again, at the podcast, we haven't came up with a conclusion if we're going to support anyone for mayor at this point, and as individuals, we haven't came up with that either. So, but as of right now, I wish Jim luck, and to me, he's the only person that I've heard a common sense platform that I agree with. To me, he appears to be the only adult in the room.
Shout out to Terry Murnane. Thank you so much for the support. Friend and listen to the podcast says, hit that like button, please. Hit that like button, share and subscribe. Share and subscribe. Share it out on X. We appreciate it. Let's keep this going. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of comments here. Someone put, I think it's GI Bro. Says, I don't trust him, John. Well, listen, that's the beauty of this podcast, right? We had a meet and greet with Jim Walden. You get an opportunity to meet the candidates, which we plan on having more candidates on here, which we will. The next coming week, we'll have another candidate on here that we spoke about, a socialist in New York City. We're not endorsing anybody at this time, but we have plenty of time to get to a point where we have to start endorsing someone and start putting our public interest behind. But at this point, there's no doubt about it that Jim Walden changed the conversation and changed the trajectory of this mayoral candidacy because of the conversation about the mandate, that Jim is actually willing to put pen to paper. And also, ultimately, which is near and dear to me, is he already took a stance as he supports qualified immunity. And that's huge. We hear about some of these complete leftists that are anti-police and this anti-police rhetoric that they provide. And ultimately, the police could lose that qualified immunity. And I'm telling you right now, active and retired members, if we lose qualified immunity, it'd be impossible for you to do that job. 1,000% you would have to get some type of private insurance, which was spoken about and reported on, and we actually spoke about on this podcast. But ultimately, it would be impossible to do intrusive police work. You would put yourself on the hook every time. And ultimately, the city would just go to complete peril. If we lose qualified immunity, that's the death of this profession. So I appreciate Jim Walden actually covering these major topics. The mandate, which is huge, by getting New York City civil service workers back to work, people that we honor, that we should actually revere, back to work, doing the job as they should have never been removed or had the to make that decision and change their lives. So, John, let's get right into this. Let's segue over. This has been a huge topic right now. 2 detectives under disgraced ex-NYPD Chief Jeffrey Marriage mirrored an overtime probe. This is going to be a stain on the job for a long time. There's a lot of people to probe. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to this abuse of overtime. This is not isolated to just a couple of a few. There's a lot of players and a lot of moving parts to actually pull this off.
Yeah, so it appears, a lot of the things that we were talking about on this podcast, on the Sal Greco show, on social media, that we were dead accurate about. a lot of people that were not, I wouldn't even say they weren't fans. I think a lot of people that were working directly against us and that were acting as henchmen for the upper echelon of the NYPD, paid goons and paid thugs. When you look at the retirements, and I look at the messages on my phone, and I look at the calls, and I've spoken to a lot of people. And again, I have no hate in my heart for anybody, but there's a lot of nervous people right now. There's a lot of people putting their papers in and retiring, that are direct subordinates to the upper echelon of the NYPD. I think, it really shows just how far this job has fell. And I blame Eric Adams wholeheartedly for it. I blame his appointments, and I blame him. The lack of integrity and the lack of competence in his appointments are glaring. And not only are they incompetent and don't have integrity, they're blatantly corrupt. They're blatantly corrupted. And what we told you over 2 years ago would happen is happening. And what we said to you is that when they get caught with their hand in the cookie jar, it's ultimately not going to be them, because we've seen throughout time in history, if you know corruption history in New York and you know corruption history throughout the country, the scandals really never end at the top. You never really see the top guys fall. You see everybody else around them get charged, get convicted, because it's not really too pretty to have mayors and police commissioners and chief of departments and all of them to get perp walked. So what you see is the people around them get perp walked, and they zero their investigations in on their subordinates. And we said, ultimately, you'll be left holding the bag. So this article comes out for Tina Moore about these two detectives. Again, if you watched the Sal Greco show 2 weeks ago with Marlin Bethel on it, he had pointed out specifically who these detectives are, what their overtime was like. So they were probably already on your radar. So you're not going to be shocked by anything that's in this report. I already knew about it. I read it. I was like, oh, yeah, I heard that on Sal's show when Marlin was telling about that. And, in the conversations I've had offline with Marlin, this isn't anything new to me. And, if you've been following the Finest Unfiltered family, it ain't anything new to you either. But I think we should go through it. It's a good article. But what do you think about that ultimately? Now, like, you see everybody scrambling. You see everybody running around. Everybody's looking for help now. They're coming to us for help, which I find hysterical. I think that's the funniest thing. But and I got no hate in my heart, and I'm not wishing bad on anybody. But justice has got to come. When if you were doing things you shouldn't have been doing, I feel bad that you made the wrong decision, but I don't feel that bad.
Yeah, this is an opportunity for a pent, right? Some people may say, and we've been getting constant phone calls. We've been fending phone calls like crazy the entire day. Some of the phone calls that we can't even get to, John, we were talking about it. The questions that we have in regards to this, people concerned about situations where they're all the time. But I think ultimately there's a lot of virtual signaling going on. I think that Jessica Tisch is not that white horse. I've been saying that. I think she's a complete patsy for Eric Adams. I think they're giving the illusion that they're weeding out corruption. Ultimately, what I see is more of the same. And anytime there's either a scandal, or just something of controversy, something that's controversial. For instance, when we talk about the Daniel Pantaleo case with Eric Garner, that's not a case of corruption, but it's a controversial case. And ultimately, Daniel Pantaleo paid the price for training that was applied from the New York City Police Department. Leadership never took any responsibility and accountability and said, you know what? We sent our most assertive unit into a situation to address a quality of life condition. Our police officer was met with adversity. Our police officer did the job as we paid and trained them to do. And ultimately, it was a tragic turnout. And we will make changes going forward if this is not the optics, when it comes to training. But instead, Daniel Pantaleo took the blame for the entire upper echelon in the training of the police department. So did Hugh Barry and many others. And so did the most recent case with Sergeant Duran in regards to a pursuit of a perpetrator when that sergeant deployed a cooler to stop the perpetrator, doing as he was told publicly by him, who's now the chief of department, John Shell, saying that no one gets away from the police department anymore. And he utilized the resources in around him to try to stop a fleeing perpetrator. And ultimately, it was met with a tragic demise. But this is what we see. And I think this corruption probe is no different. We're going to see, and this is what I foresee, we're going to see detectives, lieutenants, sergeants, and probably police officers that will be reprimanded, and they'll pay the price for the mistakes of this upper echelon. And there may be a few actually high-ranking members that take some blame to get the heat off the ultimate, the kings of the job, Jeffrey Madry and the chief of department as such. And we see someone like Deputy Chief Paul Saraceno, who's taking a lot of blame. And we saw it when Jeffrey Madry came out during that public setting where his attorney gave a press conference and completely tried to deflect from Jeffrey Madry's responsibilities, especially the chief of department. Oh, the poor chief of department. He's only responsible for operations. He doesn't know what goes on with overtime. He doesn't sign the slips. That was a complete tactic to try to take any criminal burden off of Jeffrey Madry and also civil liability. Another deflection, more virtual signaling, and this is more of the same. I wanted to see Jessica Tisch be that white horse, but unfortunately, I think deep down we knew that she wasn't going to be, and she's just not that. Some of this corruption is cleaning itself, but no bearing. I don't think it makes a difference if it's Jessica Tisch or another commissioner at this point.
No, I agree. Eric Adams, as long as Eric Adams is the mayor, there is no police commissioner, in my opinion. Eric Adams is the police commissioner. The fact that Kaz Daughtry, John Shell, and Tommy Kinsella remain in place, and also Tariq Shepard remain in place when their detectives have all been, the people are mirrored in scandal right now. You know, there's an allegation that their drivers would do their 8-hour shift and go home and collect overtime, keep themselves on the clock. Obviously not something that should happen, you know. And if that's true, I mean, you know, that's not right, you know. Like, you know, I and believe me, I feel for anybody that's on call. You know, if you're on call, if you're driving someone in the upper echelon of the NYPD, you're on call 24/7, right? I don't know how it works. I've never drove a high-ranking official in the NYPD. But I'm sure they have a team, and there's times when you're on call and when you're not on call, right? And to me, what should have happened is you're home, you're on call, you're off duty when you're off duty, but now your phone rings. The minute your phone rings, the minute you're on call, that's it. Boom. You go right back on the clock. That's overtime. That's only fair because you're sitting around. Like I said, you can't have a drink. You can't really travel anywhere. You can't go too far. So you're off duty, but you're really not off duty, and you're not getting paid for it. I get you have a take-home car, but that take-home car is for a reason. So you would be, the minute your phone rings and you have to go into work, you know, you get yourself ready to go, give yourself 45 minutes, you report to work almost immediately, right? But as soon as that phone rings, you should be on duty and get paid for it. And I have no problem with that. And I think that's fair. As a taxpayer, I wholeheartedly support that. That makes total sense. Why does this guy have to work? This guy or girl have to work for free? But now what the allegations coming out is that that's not what they were doing. They were going home and keeping themselves on the clock until they felt like they were no longer on the clock, and then shut it down. And that's absolutely wrong. And that's stealing. It's grand larceny at the end of the day. Dependent on these people's pay rate. I mean, it's grand larceny. I don't care how you add it up. If you only did it for a week, you're already at the grand larceny total. And honestly, I think not only retribution and money needs to be paid back to the city of New York, I think there needs to be severe penalties and punishment for it. And again, those people that get found guilty of doing that will receive due process, a trial, something that Marlin Bethel never received. And yet this man committed no crimes and never did anything and never violated any administrative rules either. So I think that to me, I'm not gloating in the fact that this is happening. I feel terrible that you people were not smart enough to understand that what happens in the dark is eventually going to come to light. And that these are not people that you should be surrounding yourself with. You know, you lay down with dogs, you get fleas, and you're getting fleas.
There's no doubt about it. We proved it on this podcast, episode after episode, conversation after conversation, that nepotism is the disease. Nepotism is the ultimate factor that creates this egregious amount of corruption. And I remember years ago, there was a lieutenant that was arrested and charged. I don't know what happened with that case, but if anybody is aware of it, maybe you could help me out. Any friends and listeners that are on the chat right now. There was a particular lieutenant, I forgot his name, and he was what they considered stealing time. He was leaving 15 minutes early every day. And I don't know who reported him, but the DA's office had documented, and over about a year and a half, 2 years worth of time, he ended up, I think he was charged with grand larceny. So they added up this time. I mean, this is an egregious amount. Obviously, this lieutenant was not part of nepotism, part of general population, and completely charged. And we see an egregious and excessive amount of overtime right now. Insane. I don't feel bad for these people at all. Honestly, I don't feel bad for them at all. There's no doubt about it. They know exactly what they were doing. We're not talking about taking 15 minutes. We're talking about taking millions of dollars. And they already do get taken care of handsomely. If you're a chauffeur for a high-ranking chief, you're getting detective, you're getting a shield, you're getting grade, and ultimately, the overwhelming majority of them end up getting first grade in a very short amount of time. So they're handsomely taken care of. So you know what? I do agree. You get a phone call, you're off duty. Once you pick up that phone and agree your mind is now on work, you should be on work for that time. But if you're home and you're getting overtime and you're getting $200,000 of overtime, an excessive amount, you should be held accountable. And how do I determine what is right and how you should be accountable? By standards. And I say to myself, if I did that, and I was general population, if John McCarry did that, or Sal Greco or Marlin Bethel or our friends and listeners, what would happen? Well, you would be suspended immediately, and immediately you would be charged, and you would be persecuted and prosecuted. So I don't feel bad for them at all. I have zero compassion for them. I tell you right now, I've said it before, when it comes time for a mass perp walk, I'm flying in, and I want to see it.
Yep. No, I agree. I agree. I think that it's terrible. I honestly think the NYPD was completely tarnished. Let's get into this article. We're about an hour, 37 minutes on here. We got about 850 people on here. Thanks for joining us this morning. If you guys could do us a favor, if you could if you could subscribe, if you could share this out on social media, we appreciate you. We're trying to get to everybody's comments. Right now, this segment, we're going to talk about two detectives surrounding Jeffrey Madry. We'll go through this quick, and then I want to get to the part about Jessica Tisch assigning 9 detectives over to DOI and a few other rumors, and then we can wrap it up for today. But yeah, let's get through this article a little bit. So,
by the way, before you get into the article, did you see her press conference in regards to the 14-year-old kid that was stabbed? Oh my God! Listen, first of all, it's extremely tragic. But I'm listening to the press conference. I said, "Is this a press conference or a bedtime story?" She was like, "And the 14-year-old was stabbed," and I was, "Oh my God, this is a bedtime story."
You know what? Like I got to be honest, I was paying attention to her until I seen all the nonsense that was going on, and so like I honestly don't even pay attention to that. She's a puppet. She's a billionaire puppet. I don't know if you said it or Sal said it, but that's exactly what she is to me. I don't even care what she has to say. It's like, oh, I got it. Crime's down. I got it. Crime's down. The crime's down narrative. Another thing, we're going to have Sam Antar. We're going to do a live one night this week. And on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to do an X space. So if any of you guys want to jump on that, make an account on X. You don't have to come on. Bring you up to the stage. You could speak, interact, say whatever you got. We usually give people 2-3 minutes, say what they got to say. We go back and forth. We talk around all topics, New York City. Like I said, I think January is going to be an insane month. And I think, potentially we're going to see something. Thursdays appear to be the day. I think we might see something. So, I'm going to put out a flyer for that. I'll put that on social media tonight. So join us for that X Space on Thursday. And we're just going to work out our schedule with Sam. We're going to have Sam Antar on here as well. to speak about a lot of the stuff he's finding, not only with the misrepresentation of crime numbers, which honestly is fraud at this point, but also his take on the overtime. We'll give you a brief overview before we get off. We're not going to get too in depth about it, but I think there's so much here, man. We can honestly stay on 24/7, and I don't think we could get out all the information that we have. Yeah, I mean, so anything on that? I mean, I'll be honest with you, I haven't been listening to Tish at all anymore. Like she completely lost me. Completely. I'm like, yeah, I'm not a fan at all. I think she had a great opportunity, and I think that she had a great opportunity to do the right thing, and she basically is destroying her good name.
Yeah, that's what I said. I agree. You know, puppet, whatever words used. I always say she's a patsy for Eric Adams. You know, I was hoping for better, right? We were hoping, you know, her being a billionaire, that she would have more leverage than Eric Adams, but clearly that's not the case, because to me it's apparent her desire to actually get into politics is overshadowing her leverage when it comes to finances and her economic ability, being the 43rd richest family in the entire country. So her aspirations of being in politics are completely overshadowing, and I think it's already tarnished her good name. Absolutely. I watched her press conference, and it sounds like a bedtime story. It sounds like she's reading a novel. I don't see any compassion behind what she's reading or any care. She's always reading from her notes. Yes, it's nice, but I'd rather you just speak from the heart about a 14-year-old kid that was stabbed in the Bronx because crime is out of control, and you're reading it like it's a bedtime story. Like you know what? Like, you should lay down and pull the covers off you and go to sleep from this great story. Absolutely ridiculous. If you have that intelligence and that emotional IQ, then stop reading from a page. Just you're the police commissioner. You don't even need to read the technicalities. Have Joe Kenny give the technicalities. He's in charge of the detectives. Just talk to the people. Tell them you're the police commissioner. This is what you see. Talk to the people. I'm tired of reading her bedtime story. I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
All right. So let's get in this article real quick. 2 women who worked for disgraced ex-NYPD honcho Jeff Madry are ensnared in the federal probe of the sex for overtime scandal, the Post learned. The homes of Detective Ingrid Sanders, Madry's former driver, and Detective Ada Reyes were raided by investigators, law enforcement says. The FBI came to their doors, executed search warrants, issued grand jury subpoenas, and has identified them as subjects in the investigation, one of the sources said. They're in the center of the shitstorm. The probe by the U.S. Department of Justice Southern District of New York is focused whether federal funds were misused to pay for stolen overtime, sources told the Post. The 2 women aren't considered targets in the investigation and aren't facing charges, the sources said. The probe was launched after the Post December 21st front page expose about the NYPD's top overtime earner, Letitia Epps, filed a federal complaint against Madry, the then department's top uniformed cop, alleging he used overtime to coerce her into performing unwanted sexual favors between June of 23 and December of 24. We know all the details about Epps. He wanted to have anal, vaginal, and oral sex, Epps said. He was always asking me to kiss his penis. Epps told the Post Madry, a close friend of Mayor Adams, allegedly targeted her because she was having money problems and had been a victim of incest as a child. Epps worked with Madry as he moved up in the department from chief of housing, chief of patrol, and then chief of department. Sanders, who joined the department in 93, made an eye-popping $163,414 in overtime last year and resigned days after the Post exposed her boss's alleged conduct at police headquarters. Both Sanders and Reyes have hired lawyers, a union official said. This all falls on Madry, the source says. This is a supervisory issue. This is coming from the top of the department down. In fact, it's emanating from City Hall on top down. It's 100% true. I wish that person identified themselves. Since the allegations emerged, Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch has been cleaning house, ousting dozens of NYPD brass on December 28th in a shocking purge, beginning with the bosses at the department's Internal Affairs Bureau. Lawyers for Sanders and Reyes did not immediately return messages. I don't know who this source is, but again, this all falls on Madry. This is a supervisory issue. This is coming from the top of the department and down. In fact, from City Hall on down. I mean, that's it. It nailed it. Whoever made that nailed it.
Absolutely. The leadership is to blame for this. The leadership caused the NYPD to be an embarrassment right now. The NYPD was the GOAT of policing. Right now, the iconic police department for the entire world is looking like a complete joke. The entire world is watching right now. I'm traveling throughout the entire country, and I meet people all over the place. And like, oh my God, what is going on with that city? That's what I always hear. And especially when you tell people you're retired from the NYPD, they're like, oh my God, what's going on there, right? And listen, I said, watch the podcast, and you'll get an up-to-date bird's eye view of what's going on. It's just embarrassing. But the leadership ultimately is to blame. The leadership on every level. Talk about small unit leadership breakdown. Jeffrey Madry, Eric Adams, people below Jeffrey Madry. Everyone has a hand in this. Someone was supposed to speak up and say, this is immoral, this is wrong, this is theft, we're stealing from the taxpayers, but nobody stood up. Everyone has to a hand to blame. And I also blame, I think, ultimately it's the leadership, but I blame Epps, Reyes, and Sanders also for actually taking this opportunity to receive this excessive amount of overtime. We can't play Babe in the Woods. They knew they were making over $200,000 in overtime. It's excessive amount that they're home making this overtime. This whole sex for pay to play. I don't. It's not right, but they do have to blame also. But ultimately, who sets the example and could cause an organization to crumble is the leadership. And the NYPD is completely crumbling. It's embarrassing. It's horrible to look at. This is what we're faced with right now. We need an overhaul, and we need it fast. And Jessica Tisch is not doing it. It's exposing itself. She's not the one cleaning it out. She put herself in the right position, the right timing, and she's completely curbed by Eric Adams. Unless she's going to step out and actually be the commissioner, it's never going to be right. It's just going to be more of the same.
Will not be shocked by it either because, we were telling you months ago that that's exactly what was happening. So until investigators put out exactly what's going on, we're not going to break anything on that. But I would say those are very strong rumors. I don't know the particulars of the people involved, but they're being. He obviously fended them off. I think he does a great job. It's really like that's. I remember Officer Lack in the academy teaching us that stance. I've been in that stance a few times. Everything was real textbook as to our training, how to swing the asp, the fighting stance, dragging your leg back so you're not going to trip. All these, real bladed stance and use of the asp. So apparently, the officer, this happens. He tells absolutely nobody about it. He doesn't make any arrests. Nothing. There's a video of it.
He did a great job, standing his ground, and it's like textbook DOI.
We could get into that a little more. I just, I think I didn't pull the article. This shouldn't be new for internal affairs. We dropped a log where we talked about, but I think what's important to note about what happened, what we said is we detailed all this out and gave irrefutable proof of what happened and how it happened, and absolutely nothing was done about it. And this should have been stopped in its tracks then, and it wasn't. But the fact that the case is being labeled as an M case in internal affairs world, that is a misconduct case, that is not a corruption case, is insane to me, because the mere allegation of criminal association deems that case is a corruption case. We gave irrefutable proof of criminal association against the higher upper echelon of the NYPD. Since that point of us doing it, they actually changed the allegation. They actually changed what criminal association is in the patrol guide. However, they're still in violation of it, even with their updated, changed version of it, that they never informed us on. And we also allege misuse of overtime, which is corruption. We also allege official misconduct, which is corruption. So there's multiple other factors in that case that deem that to be a corruption criminal investigation. And on top of, we had a supervisor in the NYPD threaten our children's lives over the internet, which is a felony. It's unbelievable that case, that anyone even felt comfortable telling us that was an M case. And and for those of you that were involved in that case originally and going forward, if that's not immediately corrected, we're going to be dropping an internal affairs log on you as well. We're going to be doing it on the people that had previously investigated this case. I haven't had time to do that, but we are going to do that for not performing a proper investigation, amongst other things. There's a lot of other things in there that you're going to get, that we're going to allege, not even allege, because you've done it. So we're just going to say exactly what you did and what you've done. And it's absolutely, utterly disgusting to me.
Yeah, I think you laid it out perfectly and explained basically what's going on with a case. Absolutely laid out perfectly. And also with these 9 detectives going to DOI, I think it's complete virtual signaling. There's no doubt about it. Those detectives are not going there to actually help with the case, what's going on with this corruption probe with the NYPD. So the appearance that they go in there to actually help out with the feds with this corruption probe is ridiculous. They'll probably be doing some other odds and ends, while those 9 detectives could be far more better used working with the police department right now with crime and working right now with these cases, because there's a mass amount of crime going on in New York City. So just virtual signaling, absolutely ridiculous, a waste of time. It also gives the appearance that they're spies. And so it's not a good appearance sending 9 detectives at this time while this corruption probe is going on to DOI. When do we ever send 9 detectives? But 100%, there's no doubt about it, those detectives are not going there to work with the feds on what's going on with this case right now. Just absolutely ridiculous, complete virtual signaling. And Jessica Tisch, I blame for that move.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure at the same time they moved detectives into DOI, they actually moved one detective out of DOI who's involved in this whole corruption scandal. And that's something else that has to be looked into. That why was she implanted in DOI? And supposedly she was a crony of the now disgraced former NYPD police commissioner.
That's right.
So there's a lot of. So instead of just having one lackey, now we have 9. Not a fan of these moves at all. One thing I forgot before we get out of here, we're about 2 hours in. We have almost 1,000 people on here. Appreciate you guys for joining us. If you could do us a favor, if you could share this space out, we appreciate it. We are going to be Thursday. We're going to do an X space. So if any of you guys want to join us, you could go over to my X account. I use my own name, Eric's X account, Sal, Marlin, the Finest Unfiltered X account, whatever you want. And if you follow us there, you'll be notified when we go live. But it's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern. You could go on there, you could click in it, and you could join the conversation. We'll bring you up to the stage if you request, if you want to talk. So we're going to do that this Thursday evening. We're also going to have Sam Antar come on here and to do a live, and that's going to be at night. It's not going to be on normal 8:05 live. So what I have up on the screen right now is an investigation that was done from Sam Antar on white collar fraud. Sam Antar is the former Crazy Eddie CFO. He is a convicted felon. He was defrauding the government, both for not paying taxes, his audits he was defrauding, and he basically masterminded a lot of things when it came around to stock trading. His story is highlighted in the book Retail Gangster. And you that grew up in New York, or especially Brooklyn, Crazy Eddies, you remember the commercials. So Sam Antar was the man behind that fraud. He then, after his conviction, worked with the FBI and trained the FBI on how to detect fraud and stop fraud. So what he's been doing now in his retirement is he's been highlighting the fraud that he sees, because obviously he has an eye for it. Myself and Eric have an eye for police work, for police corruption, for things that aren't right, for policy, for legislation that affect public safety. Sam has an eye for fraud. So Sam, saw something based on something we said and said, wait, this doesn't look right. Let me look into that. So he wrote this: breaking news. $600 million overtime scandal reveals city council's catastrophic legislative oversight failure. Now, this is a great read. If you go to @SamAntar on X, the link to it's there. I read the entire article. I'm not going to go into it here Again, I want to have Sam come on and walk us through his entire investigation. But our latest investigative piece exposes a jaw-dropping scandal that goes way beyond sex for overtime allegations. We've uncovered a systemic failure of legislative oversight where the NYPD's Chief of Department Division saw overtime eclipse base salaries by a 10-to-1 ratio in fiscal year 23. Overtime spending nearly doubled from $303 million to $601 million in just 2 years. Top officials like Quatisha Epps pulled in over $400K with $204,000 in overtime alone. City Council had all the numbers. They saw everything. They did nothing. This isn't just about one corrupt chief. This is about a complete breakdown of financial accountability in one of the nation's largest police departments. Who's really watching the watchers? So what you see here is he shows the base salary of uniform members, $53 million. And those for, that encompasses many units that fall under the chief of department's office, right? $53 million in base salary. However, overtime was $532 million. So 10-to-1 ratio overtime to base. And then again, when you look at the civilian overtime, same thing. Base salary, $7.2 million. Civilian overtime, $69.5 million. Again, 10-to-1 overtime to base ratio. Eric, I don't want to get crazy into this, but just an overview, what does this tell you?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I want to give Sam the opportunity to actually explain this. But what this tells me, just on the surface and just a glance, of course, what you said is having a police perspective and eye. We actually had anecdotal experience with the NYPD, a combined almost 40 years worth. To me, this is just a complete egregious amount of abuse. Clearly, this upper echelon of police department thinks that this police department is theirs. It's their bank. They could utilize it in any facet because you can't have it both ways. What are they doing right now? The upper echelon of police department has gaslighted the public, tell them that their perception does not meet their reality, that crime is down substantially. And if crime is down substantially, as they say, which we know is a complete lie, then why do we need to spend such an egregious amount of overtime? You can't have it both ways. It looks completely abusive. I look forward to Sam actually breaking it down. He's done such a fantastic job. We talk about intrusive police work. He does a great job of being intrusive when it comes to actual analytical numbers and data based on finances. He did it himself. He was utilized by the FBI, and he's doing it again. He saw the gaslighting. He saw the perception control. He saw this NYPD, this administration, try to control the narrative. And Sam Antar, being a long-life New Yorker, took it as a complete insult. And he utilized his knowledge and his experience to use and weaponize their own numbers to expose the lying and the egregious amount of abuse. Just on the face of this, the chief of department has a lot of questions to answer, and I hope that he's held accountable, not just only civilly liable, but potentially criminal liable. Just as he said before, he's not going anywhere. No one's going to 233 Broadway, but you may be headed to 500 Pearl Street. And 500 Pearl Street is a southern district for the feds. Frankie Palagucci, shout out to you. 333-999 coffee and donuts. That's right. You guys are appreciated. So are you. Thank you so much. Thank you for standing up for the active and unjustly fired cops. All evil comes to light. I agree. We always say what goes on in the dark comes out in the light. And you know what? John and I were willing to take the lumps to actually help with the rank and file. I said our experience is like Shawshank Redemption. Sometimes you have to crawl through shit to get the other side. We've been called radicals. We've been called maniacs. We've been, saying we're ranting. We've been, completely smeared and slandered. Told us that we have no lives. Go stay in our basements, which we don't even have a basement in Florida anyway. But the bottom line is to the point that we actually had our kids threatened. But you know what? I'm glad that we stood up in the face of adversity and we have the support of our friends and listeners here, because this is what it takes to expose this corruption and this embarrassment by the NYPD. This egregious amount of taxpayer money that is being spent is an insult to every New Yorker. Everyone has to be involved right now in this fight against this corruption probe and against this version and this administration that we see right now in New York City. Active retired police officers, families, New York City residents, everyone has to be involved.
Absolutely. So, I mean, just looking, Benito, slow your roll in the chat a little bit. You're getting a little crazy. I'm gonna have to put you in timeout for a minute if you don't slow it down. How about a comment like every couple of minutes instead of every 2 seconds? Yeah. Okay. Hold on. You're in timeout, dude. You can't. You know. I can't. Sorry when I don't get to monitor the chat, but when I see someone just talking jibber jabber over and over again, it gets crazy. Put you in timeout, bro. Free speech platform, but take it easy. Oh, by the way, anybody see Juju today, Steven? I haven't seen him at all today. I don't know where he is. You know, I don't know Juju. Sorry, guys. The jester didn't show up for work today. I don't know where he is.
It's funny. Benito Cruz showed up though.
Yeah, Benito showed up, but I don't know. He's definitely not Juju. Might be Juju's cousin, but you know. So when I look at this overtime, you know, there's a lot of things here. People are like, oh, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? You know, the cops are out there, protests are up. What's the big deal? One, we have a huge overtime corruption scandal. The other end of it, it's a complete mismanagement, completely inept management on the part of the NYPD. And I get it. Yeah, I get it. Like, you know, cops are being forced to work all this overtime. Why is there a 10-to-1 ratio in civilian overtime? What are they being forced? They're going out to protest? What are they being forced to work to? Like, it doesn't add up. And then what really doesn't add up is when I flash back to the chief of personnel testifying in city council and him saying that, no, actually, you know, retention's great. You know, and no one's leaving the job, and yeah, we're hiring at great rates, and everything's great. Everything's great. Yeah, no, fully staffed NYPD, and it's like, so how many people actually are out on the street? It's only $53 million in salary for the chief of department's office. How many of those people are on the street out of those uniforms? How many of those people on the chief of department's office are out on the street? It's only $53 million. But yet you encompassed $532 million in overtime. I mean, this on its face it's honestly, it's criminal. Like the inept incompetence of it on its face to me is completely criminal that there were no management, there were no overtime controls put in place. And I heard Bill Bratton in some article regurgitate overtime control. Jessica Tisch is putting in the overtime control. Jessica Tisch is putting in the overtime control. No. They were Jessica Tisch isn't putting in no overtime control. There were always overtime controls in place. Your buddy Eric Adams put his Skell friends, him and his Skell friends, decided to remove all of that. And look what happened. So to me, I don't even care if they would forget they were trading sex for overtime. Yeah, that's illegal. And they deserve to go to jail for that. I'm saying they should be brought up on criminal charges just based on the face of this alone. Complete, utter mismanagement of New York City taxpayer funds. Complete and utter. This is stuff, I mean, this is hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayers' funds gone, thrown out the window. And just one more note, you know, I consistently watch Kaz Daughtry and John Shell show up everywhere with all of these highly embroidered items. How much do you think they're spending on embroidery? I mean, and that to me also is criminal. I don't believe they're paying for these expensive jackets. I don't believe they're paying for the embroidery. I believe us as taxpayers are paying for all of this stuff. And I believe it's going to be in the six figures when you look at it, because I've never seen them wear a clothing item twice. And they're coming with all these different jackets, fur-lined jackets, this jacket, that jacket, shell coat jackets. Everything's embroidered. Everything, you know, we remember the famous Caban with his Cuba Vera shirts with the police commissioner on it. I mean, like, it just shows how they do not care about New York City taxpayers. They look at this money as it's their own. But this, right on its face of it, this is. When Sam comes on, we'll delve into it more. But this is 100% pure corruption without even knowing that they were giving away overtime for sex and other favors.
Yeah, that's why I always say this whole sex scandal is just one aspect. It's just a spoke on the wheel when it comes to this overtime. If we never even knew about this sex scandal right now, if it never came out in the public as we speak, and we actually saw this chart first, I would still stand on that position that I just said, that I would like to see them held civilly liable and also criminally liable, especially the chief of the department himself. He says he's headed to 233 Broadway, but just on this factor alone, should be headed to 500 Pearl Street. This is an egregious amount. We've never seen this amount of overtime, a 10-to-1 ratio. It's absolutely insane. And especially right now, John, you've seen it with your own eyes. I haven't been to New York in over 2 years right now. My boots haven't hit the ground in New York, but you've been to New York numerous times. And every time I speak to you, you tell me you don't see any cops out there. You don't see the presence that you used to see before. And yet we see a 10-to-1 ratio with the amount of personnel that we have out there right now, and you're not seeing any presence. So to me, it's more indicative that this overtime is just being completely abused by this administration. And even going further, I'm glad that you brought up the embroidery of the uniformed items that the upper echelon was wearing, because it seemed completely egregious. But again, I want to know what's going on with those 511 tactical pants. Why is a proprietary item distributed as an item that you must be purchased by the NYPD? Is there a kickback on that? I'd like to know. I want some information on that also, because that doesn't look right on the face. There's an appearance of impropriety when it comes to the 511 tactical pants that must be purchased by NYPD personnel. Absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't look right. To my, from the information I have, credible sources say that a former sergeant that worked in the equipment section is a sales rep for the 511 tactical company. If that's true, there's a lot of questions to be answered.
Yeah, and so, you see Kaz in the background here while Eric Adams getting his eyebrows threaded, and you see, like, this jacket just appears out of nowhere, has his, Commissioner Daughtry thing on it, the shield embroidered on the other side of it. And, like, I don't know how many jackets I've seen this kid that they're embroidered. I don't know how many, dude. I can't tell you. I can't tell you how many highly embroidered items. And I'm saying right now, I don't believe he's even paying for the jackets. So, like, it's a big problem to me. It's a big corruption scandal. I think the civilian overtime numbers alone, is that not a huge red flag? You could sit there and say, oh, well, we lied, and actually, we are really down, and there has been a mass exodus the last 3 years. And John McCarry and the Finest Unfiltered and Eric Dim and Sal Greco were right that this was the most amount of police officers we've ever lost in New York City and NYPD history under the Eric Adams administration. And we were full of shit, and we were hiding that from you. Those guys were actually telling you the truth. So we needed to prop up our numbers with the overtime. So, and that could be understandable, right? But how do you explain the civilian overtime numbers? There is no explanation for it. There's zero explanation for it. Zero. There's zero explanation for why you need a new jacket that's highly embroidered every day. Zero. There's nothing. There's absolutely no reason that you should have a new uniform item every day with highly embroidered stuff all over it. I think, to me, again, it just shows this is just a highlight in all-around corruption and all-around mismanagement and lack of care. And I honestly think that they all need to be held accountable. Everyone that's saying that nothing's going to happen, I don't necessarily agree. I think there are some backdoors deals that are going to be made to clean up images politically. But I think that this month is going to be fireworks. It's already been. I don't think we've seen anything yet.
Actually, as we're talking from a few anonymous sources, I received a couple of texts that it's confirmed that there is a sergeant that worked in the equipment section is a sales rep for 511. And 511 now is a proprietary item that must be purchased by NYPD. To me, that's an appearance of impropriety. It doesn't look good, and that should be looked into also. So whoever's watching this podcast, I would look into that and see who's benefiting from that, because it doesn't look right to me.
Oh, yeah. And another thing, one more thing. Cafecito Break. She hosts a space every Sunday night, 9 p.m. I try to join sometimes. Sometimes I'm on there, sometimes I'm not. But it's a great space. Talk all things New York on X. Go check out Cafecito Break space. She'll be up 9 p.m. Like I said, if you guys have any issues, let us know on how to get into it. But it's good. And like I said, you could get up and talk. So we'll be doing ours on Thursday. We'll let you know the schedule for Sam. I really don't, I really don't have much else. I mean, I could go on till next Monday. I just, I don't know. I think we should end it here. You got anything else before we get off? Anything else you want to talk about?
Nah, this 2 hours and 20 minutes into it, just ending this with Eric Adams getting his eyebrows done is enough for me. So I do have one question, though. You have any more Charlie on the Parkway? Because if you have any more Charlie on the Parkway, that would definitely erase my record, my vision of seeing Eric Adams get his eyebrows threaded.
I wish I did. I don't have. If anybody has any Charlie on the Parkway videos, please send them. They're hysterical. I'll always end with those. And then we'll go into our Cat's Daughtry video. But yeah, no, I got nothing. I think it's going to be an interesting week. So let's see what the hell is going to happen. I think the DEA is just continuing to do gaslighting, and they're not really working on what they should be focused on. I think that pilot program, we will not see that in 2 years. That'll just like the presidential election poll. I think though we never knew the results of, but we did know that 94% of detectives supported Donald Trump for president. I think that ultimately that app and that function will not be around in 2 years. I think, so I think that was a joke. And I think that corruption is really rearing its ugly head in the NYPD. If any of you guys paying attention to who's retiring and the numbers of retirements, it's really gonna open your eyes. So I appreciate everybody for being on here today. We had about 1,000 people on here. We're gonna continue rocking out, and that's it for me. Eric, you want to close us out?
Yeah, I just want to end with this. For our active and retired members, you should reach out to your unions and ask them, why are they avoiding coming on this podcast where they have an opportunity to actually speak about issues that should be addressed? This is an opportunity for the union members to speak to the public in long form and say they're not okay with this corruption scandal. They're not okay with a corrupt upper echelon. They want better for their rank and file. They want better for their members. They want their members to have the opportunity to buy different authorized tactical pants and not be forced to buy a pair of $75 pants from a specific company. Have them make these wrongs into something right by coming on this podcast and giving real messaging. Talk about this potential program with this Uber rides, where you can have an opportunity to have some input in long form. This is an opportunity, and if they don't take it, you should be asking questions. Do you really care about your membership, and where are these union dues going? So there should be a presence. We will send an email, as we said before. I have no expectations. We never received anything back from Pat Hendry, so I guess usually these unions, they walk in lockstep, kind of uniformed. We've seen it when they address this overtime issue. They're walking in lockstep, so I expect the same. But we will give that opportunity. We'll send out an email and try to get the union members, especially the presidents, on the podcast so that they can address their members and take care of you. So with that being said, we'll see you tomorrow, 8:05 live. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out. Take care, friends. Take care, listeners.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.